Good morning, Mr. Halley. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Are we ready?
We are ready to proceed, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, this morning's or today's session is going to concern the evidence of Brigadier Ncube. He's been granted leave to cross-examine Mr. McBride. The evidence of General Mabula will also be led today, and he's been implicated by Mr. McBride and General Booysen. And Mr. Chair, you've granted leave for him to cross-examine both of those witnesses. Mr. Chair, there are quite a few bundles, but hopefully we can get through all the bundles quite briefly. There's the bundles in relation to General Booysen, and that's a Z series of bundles. Then there's the bundle of Mr. McBride, and that's a A to D series. And then there's some additional bundles that have been created specifically in relation to Brigadier Ncube and in relation to General Mabula. They range from Y17 all the way up to Y26. We anticipate that the evidence won't be too long, but of course one can't always make an accurate assessment at the beginning. I will commence with leading the evidence of Brigadier Ncube. I would ask that he be called to the stand.
Please administer the oath or affirmation.
Please state your full names for the record.
Pharas Ncube, Chairperson.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No, Chairperson.
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
Yes.
Do you swear that the evidence will give you the truth, the whole truth and nothing else but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me.
Thank you.
You may be seated.
Good morning, Brigadier.
Good morning.
Do I understand that you are still presently a brigadier?
That's correct, Chairperson.
I'd like to take you, if you will, to bundle LEA 17. If you turn and look behind you, you should see such a bundle. I understand it's in front of you. My apologies, Jen. The very proud documented bundle in front of you.
This one.
Mr. Chair, it's bundle LEA
Mr.
17.
Halley, won't you please tell your team to also write a bundle?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I will indeed do so.
Bundle LEA 17.
I trust that by early next week we would have sorted out this problem relating to the bundles, Mr. Chair.
Well, I can tell you that on not writing bundle, you are not the only ones. I
Yes.
think yesterday we had a similar situation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right.
Now, Brigadier, if you would be so kind as to turn to page LEA 17, and if you look at the top left-hand corner, there's a page numbering system. It's page 4. It's in black and black.
Page 4.
Page 4.
I'm there, Chairperson.
Are you looking at the top left-hand corner?
You see one number on the top left corner. It's in black, and then there'll be another one on the top right-hand corner. It will be red, So when Mr. Halley refers you to page numbers, he'll be referring to the black number on the top left corner.
I'm following that one.
And although it says 004, he will just say page 4. He won't mention the zeros. You've got
Chairperson,
that?
I'm there now in terms of the black color.
Yeah.
The page, I'm
Yes,
there.
yeah.
Okay, so keep that open, sir, with your left hand, and then with your right hand, if you wouldn't mind turning to page 27 of the same document.
Chairperson, I'm on page 27.
Now, the signature that appears below the heading, thus done and signed on this ... day of May 2019 at Rosebank, above the name Pharas Ncube, is that your signature?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And is that the affidavit or the statement that you have deposed to?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And you confirm that the statement is true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
That's correct, Chairperson.
Now, Brigadier, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through your statement, but I'm going to highlight the pertinent aspects of your statement. And then I'm going to ask you some questions in relation to the pertinent aspects. If I understand correctly, you've set out in your affidavit or in the statement at page 2 what the purpose of this application is, or the purpose of your application was. See that? Under the heading B.
Which page,
Sorry, page
Chairperson?
5. I've said page 2. It's actually page 5
Of the same statement?
of the same statement.
Yes, Chairperson, I'm there on page 5.
You've dealt on page 6, the following page, with your educational background.
That's correct, Chairperson.
And if you turn, if you proceed to page, sorry. To page 15, you will see there you deal with the appointment of the investigation team. Have you got it? Page 15, top left-hand corner. At the foot of the page, you see your heading there, appointment to the investigation team.
Page
Look
15.
right at the bottom of the page,
Page 15.
on page 15. You've got the right page there, or at least you had it. Look at the bottom of the page. You see the heading, appointment to the investigation team.
That's correct, Chairperson. I've seen it.
Now, the specific issue that you've been called here to respond to relates to the allegations that have been made by Mr. McBride, who was at IPID, the executive director of IPID, at a point in time. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
Now, if I understand correctly, and if you could turn back with me to page 11 of the same document. Between the years 2008 and 2009, you were the section commander of the Phokeng Organized Crime Unit.
That's correct, Chairperson.
And between 2009 and 2013, you were the unit commander of the Klerksdorp Organized Crime Unit.
Which page are you?
The following page, on page 12.
That's correct, Chairperson.
And then on page 13, between 2013 and you said to date, but I imagine that the date that you're referring to was the date of the signing of this statement. You were the unit commander of the Klabani Organized Crime Unit. Is that correct?
Not to date because it's proceed.
Yeah, it says 2013 to date.
Oh,
And I'm imagining that the date is May of 2019 when you signed this affidavit. Is that right?
no, Chairperson, because when I signed, I was no more the branch commander, but the provincial head commercial crime Northwest.
Okay. Sorry, where's that referred to over here? What year was that? When did you become the branch commander of the commercial crime?
Of Poking.
Yes.
2013, Chairperson, I was the branch commander of organized crime Poking.
So let's just go back then to that heading that you've got. You've got it in boldface, 2013 to date. It says Unit Commander, Labani Organized Crime Unit. Are you saying that that's incorrect?
Chairperson, is incorrect because currently I'm the provincial head commercial crime Northwest Province.
Let me just understand that the Klabani Organized Crime Unit, were you ever the unit commander of that unit?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And what was the time period of that?
Chairperson, I cannot remember, but I think it was from 2013.
Okay, and when did you become when did you become the provincial head of the, do I understand correctly, did you say the DPCI?
No. I became the provincial head commercial crime chairperson
Commercial.
of the Northwest, the detectives.
And when was that?
No.
What year was that?
I think it's 2017, Chairperson.
Okay. Now, in 2016, when you commenced the investigation, or when you were made part of the team that was conducting the investigation into a security breach at the acting National Commissioner's residence, where were you stationed at that point in time?
I was stationed at provincial, as a provincial head commercial crime chairperson. That's why I said that the time when I was appointed, the year maybe is before 2017, because when we carry out this investigation, I was already the provincial head commercial crime chairperson.
Okay. And at that point in time, you happened to be stationed in the Northwest Province, correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
Now, if I understand correctly, you had been involved in a number of operations together with certain other members that were involved in this particular team to conduct the investigation into the security breach at the acting National Commissioner's residence. Is that correct?
Chairperson, can I just ask to be the question to be repeated so that I can be able to understand it.
Yes, okay.
You had been appointed to a team from the Northwest that was conducting an investigation into a security breach that apparently took place at the acting National Commissioner's residence. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And do you recall the date on which you were appointed to that team?
Chairperson, I cannot remember the date, but it was during November 2016.
Now, prior to that, sorry, if I can just take you to the letter of appointment. I believe it's in General Ncube, sorry, General Mabula's statement. If you will turn with me, if you'll look behind you, there's a bundle behind you. And if you look at LEA 26, now, if you would turn with me, Mr. Chair, to page 35 of that bundle. Got it? Top left-hand corner.
I got it, Chairperson.
Now, this is a document that's attached to the affidavit or the statement of General Mabula. It's addressed to the Deputy Provincial Commissioner, Crime Detection, South African Police Service Northwest, and the heading of the letter is Mandate to Conduct Investigation Security Threat Against the Acting National Commissioner, Counter and Security Intelligence Inquiry 2/10/2016. You see the document?
I see the document, Chairperson.
Now, have you seen this document previously?
Yes, Chairperson.
And did you see it at the time that you happened to be appointed to the team that was set up to investigate this threat?
Can the question be repeated, Chairperson?
You were appointed, if I understand correctly, on the 30th of November of 2016. My question is, did you see it at that point in time when you were appointed to the team? In other words, on the 30th of November 2016.
Chairperson, my appointment, I was conducted maybe before the letter by Major General Mabula to inform me that the former Provincial Commissioner of the Northwest, Lieutenant General Mutsonyani, have given him instruction to formulate investigation team, and he has nominated me to be part of that team.
Okay, so when you say you were contacted
That's
before
correct.
the letter,
That's correct, Chairperson.
was it was it before you saw the letter, or was it before the 30th of November?
No, it was before the 30th of November, Chairperson.
And you recall the date?
I cannot recall the date, Chairperson.
Was it 1 or 2 days, 3 days, a week?
No, I think it was the end of the week, and the next week, I think the 30th was the next week.
Now, if you turn to paragraph 2 of that letter, You'll see it talks about the appointment. The heading is appointment of team to conduct investigation. And it says, I hereby appoint the following members to conduct the investigation and to report the findings and recommendation to my office. And then it's 2.1, Major General N.J. Mabula. 2.2, Brigadier C.M. Horane. 2.3, Brigadier P.D. Ncube. 2.4, Colonel S.M. Reddy. 2.5, Lieutenant Colonel I. Dawood. Is it correct that this particular investigation was conducted by that team?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And on your understanding, who was the leader of the team?
The leader of the team, Chairperson, was General Mabula.
And on your understanding, the investigation that had to be conducted was an investigation into a security threat. Is that correct?
That's correct. And also the threat on the life of the former acting National Commissioner, General Pahlani.
Okay. Now, to go back to the earlier question that I'd asked you in relation to this team, had you conducted investigations previously with the other members of this team as part of a team?
No, Chairperson. As a team.
As a team.
They are part of that team that I'm in, that team.
Correct.
No, Chairperson.
And had you conducted any investigations as part of a team outside of your province with any of these members, whether they are all the members or only some of the members?
Chairperson, yes. In terms of General Mabula, there was a team that he led. Actually, he didn't, I must put it, it was a team that investigated Katamena cases in KwaZulu-Natal. I was also called to be part of the team.
Okay. Any other teams, any other investigations?
No, the rest of the members on this, they were not part of that team. They were not part of that Katamena team.
Okay. But did you and General Mabula, or you and any of these other members, as part of a team, conduct any investigations outside of the Northwest Province?
Currently?
Not currently. Before this investigation, had you ever conducted an investigation as part of a team with any of these members, whether it's with one member, two members, or all the members outside of the Northwest Province?
Chairperson, I only remember the one of the Katamena.
Now, the Cato Manor investigation, that was down in KwaZulu-Natal, is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And do you recall how you got to be involved in that team?
Yes, Chairperson.
Could you tell us?
It was, actually I was called because there was an operation that was need to take place in terms of effecting arrest.
Very well. And pursuant to...
And I was also part of the investigation, doing the investigation.
And pursuant to that investigation, you happened to arrest General Booysen, if I recall correctly.
That's correct, Chairperson.
And if my memory serves me right, you in fact arrested him on two occasions, once in 2012 and once subsequent to that. Is that correct?
The second arrest, Chairperson, I cannot remember well whether he was warned to appear, but I know that there was a second incident that I was also involved, but I cannot remember exactly whether it was arrest or whether it was a warning for him to appear at court. But I know there was two occasions.
Now, Brigadier, if you could just speak into the microphone. I'm told that your voice, people are not picking up your voice.
I will do that. Thank you.
Now, if you would go back to bundle LEA 17. Now you say at the top of that page, at page 16, you say at the top of that page that during December of 2016, I was informed by Major General Mabula I was elected to form part of the investigation team that was to investigate a security breach at the residential place, in brackets Sable Hills, waterfront estate, of former acting National Commissioner, Lieutenant General J.K. Pahlani. You see that?
I see it, Chairperson.
Now, is the date that you've indicated there correct? Because if I understand correctly, you say, you testified a moment ago that you had in fact been informed that you would be part of this team prior to 30 November 2016.
Chairperson, not part of the team prior. I was informed before the 30th, and we commence on the 30th.
So
But in terms of during December, Chairperson, it's incorrect. It's supposed to be during November.
So this date over here in paragraph 10 of your statement is incorrect. It should in fact be during November.
That's correct, Chairperson.
And your understanding was that the investigation had been mandated by whom?
It was mandated by the acting divisional commissioner by then of Crime Intelligence Chairperson, Major General Makele.
Now, and who had authorized the appointment of a team from Northwest to come and conduct an investigation in respect of an incident that apparently took place in Gauteng?
That was supposed to be approved, Chairperson, by the Provincial Commissioner Northwest, Lieutenant General Mutsonyane.
Once the team had been established, were there any meetings that took place immediately after the team had been established? In other words, a meeting between you, the other members of the team, and any additional party?
The first thing that have happened, Chairperson, Major General Mabula facilitated the meeting with Crime Intelligence with the investigation team. That is the briefing meeting. Crime Intelligence briefing the investigation team.
So there was a meeting with Crime Intelligence investigation team, and that you got regarded as a briefing session.
That's correct, Chairperson. That is the Crime Intelligence team that investigated the threat assessment against former acting National Commissioner General Pahlani.
Were you present at that meeting?
I was present, Chairperson.
And were the other members of your team also present?
Correct, Chairperson.
And who was present from Crime Intelligence?
Chairperson, when my memory serves me well, it was the acting herself, Major General Makele, and then Brigadier Moyani. I cannot remember the other members. I remember the two
Okay, but you're saying that at least those two people were present, Mogele and Monyani?
That's correct, Chairperson.
Are you saying that there were additional people from crime intelligence, you just don't remember their names, or are you saying that you don't remember whether there were additional people?
No, I think they were additional, but I cannot remember the names.
And when they gave you a briefing, and I'm imagining that the briefing was given to your team by crime intelligence.
That's correct, Chairperson.
And who was speaking?
Brigadier Moyane, he was the one who was briefing the team with regard to their investigation.
And other than to speak, was there a presentation of any sorts? Was there, was there either a slideshow? Was there a pack? Were there documents that were presented?
No, Chairperson. He present to us, but they provide also copies of emails that they allege it was threatening emails that were sent to the former acting national commissioner.
And at that stage, what did you understand to be the concern, other than the threatening emails?
Chairperson, the briefing was to the effect that a vehicle, a Ford Ucha, went to Sable Hill, where the former acting national commissioner stayed, and it went to actually service entrance, trying to enter the estate, and it was referred to the main gate. The occupants were 4 occupants, according to the briefing of crime intelligence. There were 1 white male, 1 white female, and 2 African male, who went in to the estate and looking for the estate manager. And
Carry on.
And when they arrived at the estate manager, they introduced themselves as members from IPID.
But now remember, we're still talking at this stage about the briefing session.
Yes, this
Is this
the-
what was, were you informed of this at the briefing session?
Yes, we were informed about this at the briefing session, and they went also to the same, actually they give us how it happened in terms of the visit of these 4 people to the estate.
And we know that they gave you certain emails that were of a threatening nature.
Yes, they give us emails that they allege it was threatening emails. That they said the emails was actually sent by one individual, Paul O'Sullivan, to the acting national commissioners. And the email was part of the investigation, the threat investigation.
The emails were part of the, the threat investigation. Is that, in other words, the threat investigation that you had to conduct, your team?
That's correct.
Now, you spoke earlier on about a security assessment. Just explain what you're referring to.
I said they were briefing us, Chairperson, in terms of the security assessment that they have done on the former acting national commissioner.
And when you say they, you're referring to crime intelligence had conducted such an assessment.
That's correct, Chairperson.
And if I understand, what was the conclusion or the assessment that crime intelligence had reached?
They, according to them, they reached that there was a breach of security with related to the former acting national commissioner's life.
Now, what was it? So crime intelligence, if I understand correctly, has come to the conclusion, which they communicated to you, your team in this briefing session that there was a threat to the life of the acting National Commissioner. Do you understand that correctly?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And your function in relation to the conclusion or the assessment that had been conducted by crime intelligence was to do what?
Was to conduct investigation in relation to the threat imposed to the life of the former acting National Commissioner, Chairperson.
Was this supposed to be a criminal investigation, or was it something different?
Chairperson, because we were having the emails and the briefing, we didn't open a criminal docket. We opened an inquiry docket.
Now, once the investigation was conducted, and on your understanding and based on what transpired at the briefing session, what were you supposed to do once you had completed your investigation?
Chairperson, maybe I must give how it has happened in terms of this investigation.
No, just take a step back. At the briefing session, you were informed of the threat assessment or the security assessment that had been conducted by crime intelligence. Crime intelligence came to the conclusion that there was a threat to the life of the acting National Commissioner. Your instruction or your mandate was to conduct an investigation. If I understand correctly, it was an investigation into the threat to the life of the acting National Commissioner.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Now, once you had completed your investigation, according to the instructions that you had been given at that briefing session, what were you then to do?
That's why, Chairperson, I said, let me explain how did we approach it from the team in that investigation. The approach, Chairperson, after the briefing of crime intelligence, General Mabula, the team leader, then suggested to us, because during the briefing, it was indicated that it is believed that the people who entered at the Sable Hill are members of IPID, according to the briefing. Then General Mabula indicated to us to say, after the briefing, he make an appointment with DPP Pretoria. He said to us, let us go and brief the DPP regarding this investigation. The reason being, there was on public domain that IPID is investigating the acting National Commissioner. So for us to investigate this threat assessment, let us brought the DPP on board so that our action mustn't be seen as action countering the investigation of IPID. Then we went and briefed Advocate Mzinyati. It was myself and Major General Mabula and Colonel Dawood. We briefed him in terms of what crime intelligence has briefed us, and also in terms of the email that they allege was the threatening email. Then Advocate Mzinyati indicated to us that to him, this is a very serious allegation that need to be investigated. And then he indicated to us to say he will allocate an advocate to the team. And he divulged the name that time to say Advocate Nema Rwani will be assigned to the team. It's then that we commence with the investigation.
So if I understand correctly, pursuant to the question that I'd asked earlier on, there was not necessarily an instruction given to you at the briefing session about what the investigation should entail. That was left to the team. You understand that correctly?
Yes, in terms of the investigation, Chairperson, the crime intelligence, they don't have the skills in terms of crime investigation. That's why there was a team nominated now to investigate in terms of crime investigation.
Okay. And at that briefing session, was there any instruction given to you? And we're not at this point in time concerned with what happens after the briefing session. I want to know, at the briefing session, was there any instruction given to you about what you should do once the investigation is complete?
There was no specific instruction in terms of that, Chairperson, but our team leader, General Mabula, he was communicating with General Makeli in terms of giving the feedback, not in writing, but verbal feedback in terms of the progress.
Now, the date of the briefing session, do you recall what that date was?
If I remember well, Chairperson, I think it was the 30th of November 2016.
And the meeting with Advocate Mzinyati in Pretoria, do you recall what that date was?
Chairperson, I cannot recall. I think what happened, we have the meeting with crime intelligence early in the morning, and when after that meeting, General Mabula conducted Advocate Mzinyati, he allowed us to come and see him at his office on the same day.
So you traveled to Pretoria to meet with Advocate Mzinyati on the 30th of November?
No, Chairperson, we were already there in terms of the briefing of crime intelligence.
So you said, sorry, that the briefing with crime intelligence took place in Pretoria, so you simply traveled to the offices of the DPP?
That's correct, Chairperson.
I understand. Now, let's just move forward now to deal with the actual investigation that was conducted. You would have had a meeting first with your team leader, General Mabula, to discuss the way forward. Is that correct?
We didn't have the meeting with him, Chairperson, because as I said, when he contacted me in terms of the instruction of the former provincial head, he already briefed me to say, this is the investigation that we are going to conduct, but I will convene the meeting with crime intelligence for the briefing of the team.
But after the briefing session, did he call a meeting before you went to go and meet with with Advocate Mzinyati? Or did you leave crime intelligence straight away after the briefing session and simply go to meet with Advocate Mzinyati?
I cannot recall, but Advocate Mzinyati, we have seen him, Chairperson, after the meeting of crime intelligence, but I cannot recall that General Mabula have called the meeting after we met with crime intelligence.
Now, the actual investigation itself, did that investigation entail, was there a meeting that was held between General Mabula and the rest of the team to explain how the investigation is going to unfold and to share the responsibility of who's going to do what?
No meeting to that effect, but myself, Colonel Daoud and Brigadier Pharas, Chairperson, our duties was of investigators. Colonel Reddy, actually, he's from legal service. He was just part of the team in terms of legal opinions.
And were there subsequent meetings held where you provided feedback to General Mabula of the investigations that you had conducted?
Chairperson, I won't say it's meeting, but we will, from time to time, when we went and obtained statement, we'll brief General Mabula as a team.
When did you complete your investigations?
Chairperson, what have happened? As I said, we register inquiry inquiry docket. It was not a criminal docket. After we commenced with the investigation, we went to Sable Hill to interview people that crime intelligence have indicated they were interviewed. Their statements were obtained. And after their statement, after we have conducted preliminary investigation with regard to the inquiry docket, then we met with the advocate that Advocate Mzinyati have allocated or assigned to the team. That is Advocate Nemarwani. It was not long after we have commenced, after we have done the preliminary. Then we presented the statement before Advocate Nemarwani. And in that presentation of those statements, Advocate Nemarwani came with Advocate Johnson. They perused the statement in our presence, and then they indicate to us to proceed with the investigation to complete it, and we must bring back the inquiry docket to them. I cannot remember when did we complete the investigation, but what have happened is after the completion of the inquiry, we submitted again back to them. Then they perused the file and they indicate to us, no, we are of the opinion there is a case to be answered here. And they advise us to register a docket. Then we went and registered a criminal docket. And they said to us, after you register the criminal docket, bring it to us for us now to decide. We registered the docket, and the docket was submitted before them. It was with Advocate Nemarwani. Then Advocate Nemarwani, after they perused the docket, they phoned General Mabula, the team leader, to say, your docket has been allocated to Advocate Mashuha. The team can make appointment to see Advocate Mashuha. That's how it has unfolded, Chairperson.
So if I understand correctly, you had meetings with Advocate Nemarwani after an initial set of investigations, and then you had subsequent meetings with Advocate Johnson, and what was the other advocate's name?
No, the meeting with Advocate Johnson, as Advocate Mzinyati have indicated to us, Chairperson, that Advocate Nemarwani is allocated to the team. After we have done the preliminary investigation, we met with Advocate Nemarwani, but at that meeting, Advocate Johnson was part of it when we present now the preliminary investigation to Advocate Nemarwani.
Do you recall the date of that meeting, where the preliminary investigation report was given?
No, there was no report given.
Sorry, when I say report, what you reported to Advocate Nemarwani?
No, we present the statement, Chairperson. We went, the preliminary investigation was conducted in terms of obtaining the statement at Sable Hill. Then we present the statement to them, and they indicate to us we must proceed, complete the investigation in terms of the inquiry, and we must bring the inquiry back to them.
And at what stage did they decide that a criminal docket should be opened?
I think it was in January 2017, Chairperson.
Now, let me understand, by January of 2017, when they advised you to open a criminal docket, by that stage, they were of the opinion that there's a case to be answered here.
That's correct, Chairperson.
But at the preliminary investigations, or the preliminary, at the presentation that you had given at the preliminary investigation stage, at that stage, they felt that you must conduct further investigations.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Did they express a view as to whether there was a case to meet at that stage, or were they uncertain?
No, they didn't indicate to us at that stage when it was at the stage of inquiry docket, when we presented to them at the preliminary stage.
Now, speaking about reports, did you at any stage, either in 2016 or before the criminal docket was opened, did you at any stage present, and when I say you, I mean you and or the rest of your team, present a report relating to the investigation that you had conducted at any point in time?
Can the question be repeated?
I want to know whether a report was compiled. And by a report, I mean something that was either typed or written up in some form, that was presented either to the NPA, alternatively to anybody within the SAPS, whether it be crime intelligence, whether it be Northwest, or anybody else. Was any written report compiled by you and or the rest of your team relating to the investigation that you had conducted up until the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, before the criminal docket had been opened?
Chairperson, I cannot remember when was the report drafted, but when the acting National Commissioner, Mutiba, came in, a report was drafted and we highlighted, but I don't know in which stage, whether it was at the stage where the inquiry docket was, or already was the docket, but a report, when the new acting National Commissioner came, Chairperson, it was submitted to the office of the acting National Commissioner.
So a report was compiled. It was a written report.
It was a written report.
And the report was compiled by you or your team.
It was the team, Chairperson.
And that report was presented to whom?
It was presented to the acting National Commissioner by then, Mutiba.
And what year was this?
I cannot remember the year, Chairperson.
Are we talking about 2016, 2017, or 2018?
No, I don't want to commit myself. I cannot remember which year was that one.
So what I'm trying to understand for present purposes, at what stage did you and your team come to the conclusion that, having conducted the investigation, there was indeed a security threat to the life of the then acting National Commissioner, Pahlani?
Chairperson, I will answer the question by saying this investigation, it was prosecutorial added investigation, as I indicated. From the early stage of the inquiry, Advocate Nemarone was in place. When the docket was registered, it was booked to Advocate Mashuga. We were guided by them in terms of the statement that we have obtained as a team. We didn't conclude on ourselves to say there is a threat against the National Commissioner. We put the statement before prosecutors who decided.
So, if I understand your response correctly, you saying that you didn't come to the conclusion yourself necessarily that there was or was not a threat to the life of the acting National Commissioner at the time. Instead, you had just obtained statements, you placed those statements before members of the NPA for them to make that assessment.
That's correct, Chairperson, because we were investigating whether there is any crime committed, the investigation team. That's why after we obtained the statement, then we put the statement before the prosecutors, for the prosecutor to decide.
Now, let me understand, at what stage did it come about that your investigation had been broadened to determine whether there was any crime committed? Had your mandate or the scope of your investigation been broadened to determine whether there was any crime committed. My understanding was that your mandate was to determine whether there had been a threat to the life of the acting National Commissioner.
That's correct, Chairperson, but I indicated to say there was, as it's put to me, to say yes, that was the mandate to investigate. But as the investigation team, we did take the statement from the witnesses that were identified, and we put the statement before the prosecution.
Yes, no, I understand that. But I'm asking a slightly different question. When you were initially appointed, I understood that your mandate was to determine whether there was a threat to the life of the acting National Commissioner. That was your mandate. So what I'm asking you now is, was that mandate broadened to include whether there was any crime committed? That's my question.
Chairperson, it was not broadened. It was still within the scope.
Now, you then conducted an investigation, which you've outlined at page 16, paragraph 11. And you've identified there the names of several witnesses from whom statements were obtained. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And you continue identifying a number of witnesses all the way up to page 19. And I've identified them as witnesses 1 to 10. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
Now you say in paragraph 12 that after the evidence was collected and presented to Advocate Nemorwane of the officers of the DPP, and on his instructions, a criminal case was registered under Camillesdrift CAS 12/01/2017, impersonating an IPID official. Was that your understanding of the case that was opened at that stage?
Can you repeat the page for me?
Turn to page 19.
19. I'm the Chairperson.
And if you look at paragraph 12, you say
Yes.
that after evidence was collected and presented to Advocate Nemorwane of the officers of the DPP, and on his instructions, a criminal case was registered under Camillesdrift CAS 12/01/2017, impersonating an IPID official. See that?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And then you say that Advocate Mashuga was thereafter assigned to oversee and guide the investigation. After the evidence was gathered, it was perused by Advocate Mashuga, and a J50 warrant of arrest was authorized in respect of Paul O'Sullivan and Sarah Jane Trent. Now, the first part, when you were advised to, or instructed to register a criminal case, why at that stage your understanding was that it was about the criminal investigation was in respect of the impersonation of an IPID official. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And the investigation was against Mr. Paul O'Sullivan and Ms. Sarah Trent. Is that correct?
Yes, Chairperson.
Now, at this stage, have you or have you not concluded at this stage, whether alone as your team or together with anybody from the NPA's office, has there been a conclusion reached? And when I say a conclusion, I mean in your minds, have you come to the conclusion that there is a security threat to the life of the acting National Commissioner, Pahlani, at that stage?
Chairperson, in terms of the charges, I think when the J50 was drawn up, Advocate Mashuha also had the charge of intimidation with regard to the former acting National Commissioner General Pahlani in terms of the email that was actually sent threatening. It was not only the impersonating charge only, Chairperson. There were other few charges that Advocate Mashuhe drafted.
Okay. So this warrant of arrest, the J50 warrant of arrest, when was that prepared? Do you recall?
I cannot recall, but my supporting statement for applying, I think it can be in the bundle. It can maybe assist in terms of the date.
Okay. You just bear with me. If you would turn I recall correctly, you applied for a warrant of arrest in February of 2017, is that right?
Yeah, I think it's 2017, Chairperson.
Sorry, just bear with me. You would turn with me to bundle LEA 18. If you turn with me to page 14,
Page 14.
that's right.
Yes, Chairperson, I'm on page 14.
Now, pardon me, actually, you've got to start at page 13. This is a statement in terms of section 43 of the CPA, that's the Criminal Procedure Act 51 of 1977. And on page 14 are the particulars of the suspects for whom a warrant is sought. This is the application or the affidavit or the statement that is filed in support of an application for the warrant of arrest. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And if you would turn to page 21, you, the deponent who signs that affidavit, is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
Okay. Now, the actual warrant of arrest, if I understand correctly, was obtained subsequently. If you turn with me to page bundle LEA 17 at page 29, you've attached a copy of that to your affidavit.
Page?
Page 29 of LEA, bundle LEA 17.
That's correct, on the page, Chairperson.
Now that relates to Sarah Jane Trent, and if you turn to the following page, you will see that that relates, that's the warrant of arrest in respect of Mr. O'Sullivan.
That's correct, Chairperson.
And if you look at the date stamp at the foot of both documents, you'll see that it's dated the 8th of February of 2017.
That's
Sorry,
correct,
Mr.
Chairperson.
Mr. Halley, I think I'm on a wrong page. What was the page? I think I'm on 21.
It's pages 29, Mr. Chair,
Or 29,
and page
not
30.
21.
My apologies, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I thought that was 21. 29,
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
okay.
Now, if I understand correctly, if you go back to page LE, or to bundle LEA 18 at page 14, this affidavit was used in support of the obtaining of those warrants of arrest. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
Now, we'll get back to these documents. What I'm asking you is, before we get to February, when you open the docket, do I understand your statement correctly that at that stage you understood that the case against whoever it is that was being investigated was one of impersonating an IPID official?
Can you repeat the question?
When you open the docket was opened prior to the 8th of February of 2017, is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
In fact, it was opened at the beginning of January of 2017.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Now, at the time when that docket was opened, your understanding was that the case against the suspects was a case of impersonation of an IPID official. That's what you say here in your statement. I'm just trying to understand if my reading of your statement is correct.
The one that is applying for the J50.
Look at page 19 on bundle LEA 17.
Page 19.
Have you got LEA 17, sir?
Yeah. And then the page?
Page 19.
Page 19.
Yes, I'm on page 19.
Paragraph 12. After evidence was obtained and collected, after evidence was collected and presented to Advocate Nemarwani of the officers of the DPP, and on his instructions, a criminal case was registered under Camille's Drift, CAS 12/01/2017, impersonating an IPID official. Now, if I understand correctly, this happened at the beginning of January of 2017. All I'm trying to understand is at that stage, they felt, and when I say they, I'm talking about Advocate Nemarwani and whoever else was assisting him, they felt that the case was one of impersonation of an IPID official.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Okay. Now,
I think we have reached the short break
thank you, Mr. Chair.
time. We'll take the short break. How much time do you think you will need with Brigadier Ncube?
Mr. Chair, I imagine that it will probably be another 30 minutes. I thought it would be less than that,
Yeah.
but it will probably be another 30 minutes.
Okay. No, that's
Thank
fine.
you, Mr.
That's fine. We'll take the short adjournment and resume at 11:30. We adjourn.
1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. One, two, one, two, one, two. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Let's continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brigadier Ncube, just to, and specifically having regard to the issues that we've got to deal with over years in relation to the purpose for which this commission has been established, I want to move on and deal with the issues that are specifically relevant to the commission. Now, if I understand correctly, by January of 2017, there had been investigations that were conducted by you and your team. Statements or affidavits had been obtained. They had been placed before the NPA, Advocate Numarwani in particular, and the decision was taken that this related to the crime of impersonation of an IPID official, and a docket was opened to that effect. The docket was opened in Camille's Drift which is in Pretoria. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
Now, your team at that stage had conducted its investigation. Why was that investigation not having discharged your mandate? A docket has been opened. Why was that investigation not handed over to the police officials at Kamelsdrift police station, and you and the rest of your team returned to the Northwest province where you're based?
Chairperson, we proceed with the investigation and we place the docket before prosecutors or the advocate at DPP's office.
So you are saying the process is, if you start the investigation, you proceed until you have completed it. After that, you hand over the docket to the NPA to decide whether to prosecute or not to prosecute.
That's correct, Chairperson. But
That's what you are saying.
This was not an ordinary docket, like a complainant went to police station, register a docket, and that docket allocated to a detective. It was investigation that was allocated to an investigation team. We continue and we submit it to DPP.
Yes, but if my understanding was correct, and perhaps it was wrong, but if my understanding was correct, the specific mandate that had been given to you at the briefing session was that you had to investigate a security threat against the life of the then acting National Commissioner, Pahlani.
That's correct, Chairperson.
You had reached a point where you had taken statements from all the witnesses. And so you had taken statements from witnesses, you had presented that to the, so you had given an interim presentation to the NPA's office. That was followed up with a further presentation that took place towards the end of December, early January. That second presentation resulted in a criminal charge being laid in Kamelsdrift and a docket being opened. Now at that stage, it seems to me that your mandate is completed because you've conducted your investigation, you've now opened a criminal docket. What I want to know is, do you agree with me that at that stage, your mandate has been discharged, or do I misunderstand?
No, I cannot agree, Chairperson. This investigation, it was started by the team. As I indicated, it's not an ordinary case where a complainant went to police station, opened a case, and thereafter the case is allocated to the relevant unit. We investigated and we submit the docket before the DPP.
So if I understand correctly, on your understanding, you would continue to carry the docket, you would continue to conduct the investigations until a decision has been taken to prosecute or not to prosecute.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Now, there's a suggestion, and I'm not sure if I understand the suggestion entirely. There's a suggestion that this was a prosecutor or an NPA-driven investigation. Are you suggesting that?
No, I'm not suggesting that. When we went and briefed Advocate Mzinyati, Chairperson, already he allocated an advocate to the investigation. When the docket was registered and put to Advocate Nemarwani booked the docket to Advocate Mashuche. That was the criminal docket now. So that investigation is not my opinion. It was done that way.
No, I'm just trying to understand if my understanding of what you were saying is that you had gone, you and General Mabula had gone up to meet with Advocate Nzinyati. So it's in fact from your side that you drew him into the investigation in a sense. That's my understanding.
Yes, we went, advocate. We went to the advocate chairperson.
Now, if I understood correctly from your earlier testimony, the purpose of that meeting with Advocate Nzinyati was to ascertain from him specifically whether it was appropriate for your team to conduct the investigation, given that IPID was conducting an investigation against the acting National Commission at the time.
It was for us, because we were already a team that is going to investigate, to bring the DPP on board, to say, DPP, we are going to investigate this matter, but we were also, because as I've testified, Chairperson, in our mind, there were a public domain that IPID is investigating General Pahlani. So we didn't want to be seen as people who are now interfering in IPID investigation or countering the investigation. So we want to bring the DPP on board.
But when you say you want to bring him on board, are you saying you want to bring him on board so that he remains part of the team that he's investigating, either him or somebody that he assigns, is investigating the security threat to the life of General Pahlani? Or are you saying that you wanted to bring him on board in terms of the fact that what you want to do as the investigation team? What is the role that's going to be played insofar as the NPA is concerned from that point onwards, according to your understanding?
My understanding is once the investigation, we have commences with the investigation, the NPA will give directives in terms of whether there is any prima facie case in the docket or there is no prima facie case in the docket.
So in other words, you wanted to be able to say there is somebody else other than us who thinks there is something to be investigated here.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Okay.
Now, after that, you continued to conduct the investigation. You got the first few statements. You then opened the docket in the earlier part of January of 2017. You then executed, or you applied for, a warrant of arrest. You then executed the warrant of arrest on the 10th of February of 2017. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And in terms of the investigation, just take me through now the Camille's Drift investigation. Where did you ultimately land up? You started off with the investigation initially into a security threat against the life of General Pahlani. It then resulted in a criminal investigation that was about impersonation of an IPID official. Ultimately, what were all the charges that were brought against Mr. O'Sullivan and Ms. Trent?
Chairperson, it was impersonating. That was actually drafted by Advocate Mashuga. There was also extortion, attempted extortion, intimidation, and I think also fraud. That was actually drafted by Advocate Mashuga after perusing the statement.
Mr. Halley?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I know what Counsel for Brigadier Ncube and yourself discussed with me in chambers, but I do want to say if at all possible, let's try and see if you can't finish your questioning of this witness by 12:30.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Chair.
know you thought you might take longer, but
I'll certainly endeavour to do so.
yeah, because I think I must just say this is, it's not so clear that whatever fights there may have been between different sections of between the police and IPID, it's not so clear that it connects properly to the terms of reference.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So let's see if by 12:30 we have a better picture that it does.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Brigadier Ncube, other than Ms. Trent and Mr. O'Sullivan, you also opened a criminal investigation against certain members of IPID, is that correct?
No, I didn't open any other docket against members of IPID.
Were members of IPID not charged, on your understanding?
Chairperson, the question was, I opened a docket against members of IPID.
Yes, no, he's asking a further question now. He's not challenging your, well, maybe I shouldn't say that. He's asking a different question, but which might be related to the one he asked earlier on. Earlier on, he asked whether you opened a case against IPID members, and you said no. So now he's asking whether, does that mean that they were not charged?
They were charged on the same matter, Chairperson.
Okay. And do you recall what they were charged with and who was charged?
How it unfolded, Chairperson. After Mr. Paul Sullivan and Sarah Jane Trent were charged and appear in court, the advocate who handled the case, Advocate Mashuche, gave me directive to go and take warning statement of 2 members of IPID who were together with Mr. Paul Sullivan and Sarah Jane Trent at Sable Hill. That is Mr. Mandla Matlangu, the late, may his soul rest in peace, and then Mr. Temani. Both are members of IPID. I went and obtained their warning statement and put the warning statement before Advocate Mashuche. Then he decided that those 2 members must be charged.
I just want to say, Mr. Khalid, just in case what I said earlier on might be misinterpreted, I don't mean that Brigadier Ncube should not get a chance to deal with any allegations that may have been made against him that might put him in a bad light out there. But I just want us not to take too long.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Now, insofar as the charges against the IPID officials are concerned, did I understand correctly that some of the IPID officials were being investigated for defeating the ends of justice in relation to their investigation against General Pahlani?
No, I'm not aware of that charges, Chairperson.
If you would turn with me, sir, to bundle LEA 18. I'd like you to turn to page 3.
Page 3.
Sorry, pages 2 and 3.
Page 2 and 3, yes.
That's right. Now, this particular statement is a statement of a certain Alvain Pietrus du Preer, and if you turn to page 3, you'll see that it's dated the 4th of February of 2017. And you'll see that the statement is taken by Mr. Darwood. Now, Mr. Darwood was, or rather, Lieutenant Colonel Darwood was one of the members of your team, is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
Do you know what the purpose of taking this particular statement was?
Chairperson, when I look to the statement, it seems it was actually a directive from the advocate who handled the case that additional statement need to be obtained for the witness to clarify certain aspects.
Sorry, it was pursuant to an instruction or a
The
request?
directives, when I look to the statement, because I know Advocate Mashuga was issuing directives in writing whenever he wants us to obtain additional statement. When I look to the formation of this statement, it seems the additional statement as per query of Advocate Mashuga.
What's the basis for you thinking that it's because of a directive? Is there something you see there which gives you that meaning?
Paragraph 2 of the statement, I hereby wish to make an addendum to my statement in relation to queries which relate to investigation of intimidation towards Lieutenant General J.K. Pahlani. So I'm of opinion maybe it's additional statement from the directives of the advocate.
But of course, nothing there indicates that there was a directive issued. It may be that there was a directive issued, it may be that there was no directive. He decided that there was a loophole or there was some aspect that needed clarification, and he decided the way to sort that out is to get an addendum. Isn't it?
That's correct, Chairperson.
Yes, unless you say, from your experience, you know that whenever an addendum is added like this, it's normally because there is a directive from the relevant advocate in the NPA, unless that is this case. But otherwise, from what you have read here, you can't say it's because of a directive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chairperson.
Okay.
Are you aware of the directive outside of what you're reading over here?
No, Chairperson, I'm not aware, but normally when additional statement need to be obtained will always be the directive from maybe DPP or the advocate who handled the case.
And were you aware of the investigation that was taken, or the fact that statements were being taken from Mr. du Preer?
That's correct, Chairperson.
You were aware of it?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay. Now, what was the purpose of obtaining the statement from Mr. du Preer?
Chairperson, Mr. du Preer is the driver of General Pahlani. Now, when the security, actually when we went to him, we went to check in terms of the security precautions and measures. That's why we approach him.
1 second, Mr. Halley. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You knew that he was the driver of General Pahlani, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you knew that a statement had been obtained from him by IPID, is that correct?
I think he indicated at one of the statements, Chairperson, I was aware, yes, Chairperson.
Why was he approached by members of your team on your understanding? I just don't understand that. Why was he being approached?
As I've already testified, Chairperson, to say, we were checking in terms, as a driver, in terms of the security precautions and measures.
So in other words, if I understand correctly, you were conducting an investigation at that stage into the security measures, and one of the people that was responsible, or one of the people who fell within the parameters of the security measures, was the driver of General Pahlani.
No, Chairperson. With relate to the threat leveled against General Pahlani. Now, the driver, he moved around with him.
Yes.
So we want to check whether there is any other thing that him himself is having or he knows of.
Okay. So he was a relevant witness because he drove General Pahlani, and the person who drove General Pahlani would be a person who is relevant to questions relating to his security. That's what I understand you to be saying.
That's correct, Chairperson.
During the course of the investigation, I'm not sure if you met with Mr. Dupree at all. Did you meet with Mr. Dupree?
Yeah, I think I met with him, but in both, the statement was obtained by by Colonel Dawood. Yes, I met with him at their office when his first statement was obtained. Now,
He gave a statement on the 8th of December of 2016. Do I understand correctly that you were present when he gave that statement?
the first statement,
Yes.
yes, Chairperson.
If I understand correctly, you actually took a statement from him relating to the events or relating to the IPID investigation and Mr. Paul O'Sullivan.
The statement that we actually were, as I've testified to say, in terms of the security and the precaution, I think the first statement we also indicate to him to say we are investigating the threat against General Pahlani. We were just want to know in terms of that.
Okay. Well, will you turn with me in bundle LEA 17 to page 337?
Page?
337.
300?
337.
Yes, 337.
That's right. And if you turn to page 338,
3?
so the document at page 337 and 338 is one document. It's the statement of Mr. Dupree. In fact, I think it's Captain Dupree. Is that correct? Is this his statement, sir?
Just help me with the page, 33.
337. Have you got bundle LEA 17, page 337?
Chairperson, 337 is an index, and under it is 338. I don't know whether I'm on the.
Are you on bundle
probably-
LEA 17?
You probably have a wrong bundle. Go to bundle LEA 17. Look at the spine of the bundle. LEA 17. What have you? Is it LEA 17? And on page 337, you have an index. Okay, somebody will approach you to assist.
338. Are you looking at the top left-hand corner, sir?
Can you help me?
Remember to use the black numbers.
37, yes, 337, and under it. I must get you.
Three, 335.
It's this one. It's marked 33. Oh, no, I was looking the red one.
Yeah, just always remember
Yeah.
when page numbers are mentioned, look at the black one,
Yeah,
black numbers.
Okay, I have it, Chairperson. My apology.
Okay, all right.
I'm on 337 now.
Thank you very much, General. Now, this is the statement that we were referring to earlier on, which you refer to as the first statement. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson?
Now, according to this statement, he says in paragraph 2 that on the 8th of November 2016 at 1000 hours, I was interviewed by a police investigating team which consists of 2 brigadiers and 1 colonel. As the interview was to start, I was informed that the interview would mainly focus on the safety, security, and threats towards the acting National Commissioner, J.K. Pahlani. You see that?
That's correct, Chairperson?
He then talks about, in paragraph 3, he talks about whether I was asked if I know a Mr. Paul O'Sullivan, and I informed the police investigating team that I had an encounter with Mr. Paul O'Sullivan / IPID not too long ago, and that I was not happy about what transpired in that encounter. But I didn't do anything about the incident, as I was told it was a criminal offense to talk about anything related to the said interview / encounter with Mr. Paul O'Sullivan / IPID. Now, this team that he's referring to over here, consisting of 2 brigadiers and 1 colonel, were you one of the 2 brigadiers who interviewed him?
That's correct, Chairperson?
Now, he refers to a meeting that took place on the 8th of November of 2016. I'm trying to understand how you interviewed him on the 8th of November of 2016 if you were briefed at the end of November or early December of 2016.
Chairperson, our investigation commenced on the 30th of November 2016. We didn't do any investigation prior to that.
Okay. So,
I don't know whether this is an incorrect date, but in the team, I commenced on the 30th of November 2016.
so it's possible that he should be referring to the 8th of December of 2016.
Yeah, it can be the 8th if the statement was the 8th of November, if the statement was obtained by our team.
Okay. Now, He says, if you turn to page LEA 17 at page 338, he says in paragraph 10 that he had done nothing about the intimidation/threat towards me, as I was not allowed to talk about it, and I was reminded more than once that it would be a criminal offense to do so. I did mention it in my statement to IPID about the intimidation/threat towards me and the manner in which the draft statement that was given to me as to put Lieutenant General J.K. Pahlani in a bad light. Now, what I want to know insofar as this issue is concerned, was the allegation or your understanding of what he was asserting over here?
Can the question be repeated, Chairperson? I didn't follow it correctly, so.
Well, what was your understanding of the point that he was making in paragraph 10?
What my understanding is, it seems he was threatened and he was informed that he mustn't talk about it. If he talk about it, it will be an offense against him. That's my understanding, Chairperson.
No. Look at the next part of the sentence. He says, I did mention it in my statement to IPID about the intimidation/threat towards me and the manner in which the draft statement that was given to me as to put Lieutenant General J.K. Pahlani in a bad light. What I'm asking is, what was your understanding about what he was saying in that respect?
My understanding maybe is he put it in his statement when the statement was taken by IPID, but nothing was done about that threat of him.
Okay. Was this issue pursued, let me ask you that, was this issue pursued about the placing General Pahlani in a bad light? Did you continue to investigate what that entailed?
No, we didn't, Chairperson.
Okay. Let's go back then to the second statement which we referred to a moment ago in LEA 18. At page 2. Now, we spoke about this statement a moment ago, and were you aware of why this statement was taken? I asked you that a moment ago. You said that it was your understanding, based upon the content of paragraph 2, that it would have been pursuant to a directive that had been issued from within the DPP's office.
That's correct, Chairperson. Normally, the additional if there is a statement that was taken at the first instances, and maybe the prosecutor read it through that statement, he will always say, go and obtain additional statement clarifying certain aspects.
In paragraph 3 of the statement, he says that on the 25th of November 2016, I received a statement from a member of IPID known to me as Mandla on my email relating to the alleged corruption investigation against Lieutenant General Pahlani. I went through the draft statement and I wish to state that I was not in agreement with the following aspects of the statement. He then says at the bottom of that page, at paragraph 6, the manner in which these words were used made the draft statement factually incorrect, and it is therefore, in my view, not true. Now, from what I can gather from this statement, he's complaining about the fact that he had been sent a draft statement as part of an IPID investigation into General Pahlani. correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
He says that he doesn't agree with the content of the statement.
That's correct, Chairperson.
And he says that the statement was factually incorrect for various reasons, which is outlined in paragraph 5.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Now, what I'm wanting to understand is why is an investigation now being conducted into the investigation that was being conducted by IPID?
Chairperson, as I indicated, maybe this statement, the advocate have said that the witness must clarify this point. That's why the statement was obtained.
No, that's not my question. You were part of the team, and of course, if you don't have personal knowledge, of course say so. But I'm trying to ask you, as a member of the team, why was an investigation being conducted by your team into the investigation that had been conducted by IPID?
My answer will be maybe there was instruction from the DPP to clarify this, because we couldn't went and obtain additional statement from our own, because we didn't know of the statement, the draft statement that he received from IPID.
Now, from your side, and I've asked you previously about meetings that were held between the team, but from your side, did your team, meet frequently after January of 2017? In other words, once the criminal investigation was underway?
Yeah, I think we meet on several times as a team, Chairperson. I can't remember how many times, but as a team, we will meet, discuss, brief each other.
And are these meetings being held on an ad hoc basis? Do you go back to your normal duties and meet occasionally and conduct investigations occasionally? Or are you conducting the investigation in relation to this criminal investigation on a full-time basis?
When we were conducting the investigation from 2016, we were doing it on ad hoc because most of the work was in Pretoria. We'll come, maybe we sleep over. After we finish, we'll go back. When the case appears, we'll take the case to court.
Now, before the criminal, going back now to December of 2016, before the criminal investigation was commenced, you would have had a meeting, if I recall correctly, you would have had a meeting with General Pahlani and, sorry, just bear with me, with General Pahlani and Colonel Dawood on round about the 21st of December. Is that correct?
Yes, it can be correct because I know I was looking for his statement and I was struggling because of the commitment as a national commissioner. His schedule were very tight, hectic. When we make an appointment with him, Chairperson, when you want to take the statement, he will be called for something, and then you need to make another appointment with him. It was very hectic.
If you would just turn with me to bundle LEA 23. Sorry, before we go to this report, did you at any stage meet with General Pahlani at Sun City or in the Sun City region?
I can't remember.
You can't recall?
I can't remember, but I remember, I don't know which year, when he was national acting, during the award, I was at Sun City, he was there. I don't know which year was that one, but it was during the police award.
Okay. So there was awards that were being handed out at Sun City,
Yes.
and you would have met him at that particular
No, it's not to
ceremony.
meet him, he was there. There was no meeting or anything between me and him. I was attending the award, him as the National Commissioner, he was there as the guest speaker or the keynote speaker of the event, Chairperson.
Very well. Now, ultimately, these investigations against Sarah Jane Trett and Mr. O'Sullivan, what came of those, of the criminal investigation?
Chairperson, the case was struck off the roll when Advocate Mashuche applied for indictment and then actually to do the indictment and further to join other accused, and the magistrate refused and said he struck it off the roll in terms of section 342. Whenever we want to put it back, it must be with the instruction of the NDPP.
We are at 17 minutes past 12.
Thank you, Mr.
Just,
Chair.
alerting you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Insofar as the role of General Mabula was in respect of these investigations, do I understand correctly that General Mabula was not himself involved in the investigations? He was just a team leader.
That's correct.
And you would report to, you as the members of the team would report to him.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Then getting to the arrest of Ms. Sarah Trent on the 10th. And I'm not really concerned about the warrant of arrest for her. At this point, what was the purpose of seizing her cell phone at that stage?
Chairperson, the cell phone was used in the commission of crime, in the sense that information was sent to witnesses by her, warning witnesses to attend to IPID office, as if he's an investigator himself, even providing case numbers. To say, I confirm the case number as the IPID case number. He even indicate, I confirm your status that you are not a suspect, you are a witness, but I want you to come with your attorney, regard Sarah Jane Trent, to the witness to come to. So, that message, we want to retrieve the information that was sent in terms of impersonating the IPID officials.
Okay. Now, at that stage, you did not apply for a warrant or for a subpoena in respect of the content of the phone, or to detain, to seize the phone. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson. But that cell phone, Chairperson, was seized during the arrest in terms of section, as it was used in the commission of crime in terms of section 20, and section 23 allow a police official to can seize the item that is being suspected to be used, which is in the custody of the person who's being arrested. I apply those two sections to seize that cell phone, Chairperson.
Okay, so you say section 23. Let me just understand. It says that on the arrest of any person, the person making the arrest may, if he's a peace officer, search the person arrested and seize any article referred to in section 20, which is found in the possession of or in the custody of or under the control of the person arrested, and where such peace officer is not a police official, he shall forthwith deliver any such article to a police official. And if he is not a peace officer, but you would have been a peace officer, so the second portion doesn't apply to you.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if I recall correctly, at the time that she was arrested, the arrest took place at the premises of Mr. O'Sullivan's business, is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And that took place at approximately 4:30 on the 10th of February of 2017.
That's correct, Chairperson.
And then you reconvened at the Shell garage along Marlborough Drive, is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And at that stage you realized that she didn't have a cell phone with her.
That's correct, Chairperson.
So I'm trying to understand, if once you realized that she didn't have the cell phone, how did you then get the cell phone and why?
Chairperson, I was part of the operation. The warrant of arrest of Ms. Sarah Jane Trent was executed by Brigadier Pharas. I was present. What happened is, after he executed the warrant, Ms. Sarah Jane Trent asked to phone her lawyer. Brigadier Pharas allowed her to phone the lawyer, and then we were having a lady there, Captain Mashuche, with us. Then Ms. Sarah Jane Trent wanted to check something in the house. He went with the captain. The instruction from Pharas was, after you have spoken with the cell phone, you hand the cell phone to Captain Mashuche, because he have already indicated to him when he arrests that we are going to seize it. But what have happened is, after he spoke with the cell phone, he locked the cell phone in the boot of the car. Then we went out with her. When we arrived at the garage, Brigadier Pharas approached Captain Mashuche for the cell phone. It's then that we realized that the cell phone was put on the boot, and we drove back to seize it back.
Okay. I'd like you to go back to LEA 18 at page 14. Now, this, of course, is the statement that you said you had deposed to in support of the warrant of arrest.
Yes, Chairperson.
Just take us through this, any portion of the statement where it shows in this statement that she had used the cell phone in the commission of the crime of impersonating an IPID official. You've got a number of statements. There are facts in support of the application. You've got the statement of Mr. Emmanuel Chikuve under paragraph 7.
In terms of the supplementary statement or supporting statement, Chairperson, it was not mentioned in my statement.
But you say that there was, so there's nothing in this statement to show that she had used the cell phone for the purpose of committing the crime of. Turn with me to page 19, sir.
Yes, Chairperson, I'm on page 19.
Now, there you mention the cell phone of Ms. Trent, and you give the ID number and the cell. So you give a cell number of the phone that was used.
My apology, Chairperson. Which paragraph?
Look at the bottom. On the 23rd of November 2016, one of the witnesses, namely Mr. Uester, received a call from Paul O'Sullivan, who requested the witness to provide him with the number plates as well as photographs of all the vehicles of General Pahlani. The witness also received a number of text messages via WhatsApp from mobile number 084-8491, blah, blah, blah. One of the messages on the same day as the court requested that the details of the number plates be forwarded to WhatsApp. Sorry, by WhatsApp.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. And it continued the Chairperson on that the mobile number is registered in the name of Trent Sarah Jane with ID number 84021402328083.
What I'm trying to understand is, insofar as impersonation of an IPID official is concerned, what is it in that statement that you've obtained, and I understand this to be the statement that you've obtained from Mr. Uester, what is it in that statement that suggests that this cell phone could be utilized for investigation or assist in the investigation of the crime of impersonation of an IPID official? That's the question.
He was requesting information from the witness.
Okay.
As if he's an investigator of IPID, Chairperson.
Now, if you didn't apply for a warrant for the cell phone.
That's correct, Chairperson.
And you never applied subsequently for a warrant for the cell phone after you had already detained it?
No, I didn't apply even after the seizure of the cell phone.
If I understand correctly, well, help me out. I know that you seized it during the course of the arrest, but was there any other reason why you didn't apply for a warrant at the time that you applied for a warrant for arrest? Why didn't you apply for a warrant for this to seize the
I've
cell
already
phone?
answered, Chairperson, that I utilized the two sections of the
I
Criminal
understand
Procedure Act, Section 20 and Section 23. I did not see necessary because there are two sections that empower a police official to can seize the item that has been utilized or was used for the commission of the crime.
Well, we are at half
Thank you.
past.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Harley. If I'm missing anything, you must tell me. So far, the picture I'm getting is not one that suggests that whatever evidence has been given with regard to Brigadier Ncube connects whatever he may have done to any state capture or corruption. But if I am missing something, you must tell me. So it it seems that there may have been wrongdoing, there might not have been wrongdoing, but it might not be the kind of wrongdoing that the Commission is really interested in. If that understanding is correct, it would seem to me that if there's anything that he wants to cover that hasn't been covered, just to put his side of the story, that he should be allowed to put his side of the story in relation to those particular allegations that might not have been covered. But if I'm missing something, we can look at it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're obviously familiar with some of the allegations that have been made against you about your involvement in this team.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Now, just in relation to the allegations that you've heard against you, and of course the allegation is that you were involved not only in this team, specifically in relation to the investigation of IPID into General Pahlani, but you had also been involved at an earlier stage in the investigation into General Booysen in respect of the Cato Manor death squads.
Yes, I've testified to that I was part of that team.
Now, in relation to the investigation in respect of the IPID officials that was conducted by your team, what happened to that investigation?
Chairperson, it seems there's a two picture that is being painted. There was no separate investigation of IPID members. The same case of Mr. Paul Sullivan and Mr. Sarah Jane Trent, the advocate decided that we must charge the two IPID members. This case was struck off the roll when it was struck with regard to all four accused.
Okay, so all the investigations involved the IPID officials and Ms. Trent and Mr. O'Sullivan, and that case was struck off the roll.
That's correct, Chairperson.
So, you got involved in the investigation relating to IPID as well as General Pahlani because you were instructed to be part of a team that would do investigation, is that right? You got involved in the investigation team because you were instructed to get involved in the investigation team.
That's correct, Chairperson.
It wasn't your own decision to say you want to get involved.
No.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, after the investigation was at an advanced stage, there was an investigation that was conducted by IPID as well into the investigation, or rather into some of the things that had been done by the members of your team. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
And statements were taken from you and from other members of your team.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Now, the allegations in respect of, or the purpose of that investigation, as I understand it, was to investigate the question of whether the investigation conducted by your team was designed to undermine the investigation by IPID into General Pahlani.
Chairperson, I need to give how things have unfolded. After the arrest of Ms. Sarah Jane Trent. We went to court. She applied for bail. Actually, she bring an agent application. Bail was granted. After her release, Chairperson, she went and opened a case against the team. 1, kidnapping against us. 2, theft of cell phone. And then after the arrest of Mr. Paul Sullivan, and after his release, he went and opened a case against me, specific, when I do arrest of contempt of court. IPID went and opened a case against the team, the former Northwest Provincial Commissioner, for allowing us to come and do the investigation of defeating the end of justice. Those are the cases that were investigated against us while we were doing that investigation.
Okay. Now I'd like to take you to page, if you would turn with me to LEA 23, page 71.
LEA
23 at page 71.
Yes, Chairperson, I'm there.
Now, this document says it's a warning statement for Brigadier General Pharas Ncube, and it's signed on page, if you turn to page 74, it's signed on the 11th of December of 2017. Is that your signature at the foot of the page?
Yes, Chairperson, is my signature.
Now, in this statement, you explain at paragraph 3 on page 72, you explain that on the 30th of November 2016, I was approached by Major General Jan Mabula as my senior and appointed as a member of the investigating team, of which he was the lead investigator, to conduct an investigation into a security breach against the then action, but I imagine it was meant to be acting National Commissioner of the South African Police Service, Lieutenant General Pahlani. You say, as a result hereof, presumably as a result of being approached to conduct that investigation, I, with other members of the investigating team led by General Mabula, received a briefing at Crime Intelligence, Pretoria, and then conducted an investigation registered under a Potchefstroom inquiry. The investigation showed that there had been criminal offences committed by Mr. Paul O'Sullivan and Ms. Trent, and as a result thereof, General Mabula, as complainant, registered a complaint at Camillesdrift under reference number Camillesdrift CAS 12/1/2016. I was allocated to do the investigation in this matter, and for purposes thereof, witness statements had been obtained at the Sable Hill estate where General Pahlani was residing. Now, in this statement, if I understand correctly, this particular statement was prepared with the assistance of your attorneys. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chairperson.
You then go on to say at paragraph 5, the investigation revealed that, and you set out what the investigation unearthed. 5.2, the investigation further revealed that the security manager was asked by Mr. O'Sullivan, and you set that out. And 5.3, you say, after the completion of the investigation, the case docket was placed before designated advocate Mashuga, who decided that Mr. O'Sullivan and Trent be charged with intimidation and contravening the IPID Act. You say that a J50 warrant of arrest was issued against the two, namely Mr. O'Sullivan and Ms. Trent. Both were arrested and brought before the court. And you continue. In the statement, you don't talk about a meeting that took place on the 30th of November of 2016 with Advocate Mzanyati. I just want to understand why that was left out.
Chairperson, this was a warning statement. Allegation was put before me with the dates and the venue. I was responding to that.
The allegation against you, what did you understand at that stage to be the allegation against you?
It was defeating the end of justice, Chair.
And what did you understand was being alleged that you had done to defeat the ends of justice?
I cannot specific in terms of what was put to me, but it was defeating the end of justice. Specific to say, what did I defeat, I cannot remember now, Chairperson.
Well, specifically what was being said is that this entire investigation was simply a concoction. It had simply been fabricated in order to justify undermining the investigation that had been conducted by IPID into General Pahlani.
Incorrect, Chairperson. This investigation, Chairperson, was done through prosecutorial guide investigation, from the inquiry docket until they advised us to open a criminal docket. No way that we were actually fabricating.
No, I understand that. Sorry, I'm not saying that you've done that. What I'm saying to you at this point in time is that your understanding was that IPID was investigating a charge against you of defeating the ends of justice. So I asked you, what did you understand was being alleged by IPID that you had done to defeat the ends of justice? And you said you couldn't understand the specific details. So now I'm providing you with those specific details. What IPID was saying is that you had defeated the ends of justice, you and your team had defeated the ends of justice by conducting an investigation which had been fabricated because there was no true basis for the investigation. But you had conducted the investigation in order to undermine the investigation that had been conducted against General Pahlani. That is what was being alleged.
That's incorrect, Chairperson.
Oh, you don't understand that to be the allegation? I'm not asking if that is if it's true that that was so. I'm asking if it's true that you understood that to be the charges against you.
No, Chairperson, I've answered to say it was defeating the end of justice, but specifically I cannot now tell Chairperson actually the allegation against me in terms of defeating. I have conducted myself in this manner.
Okay. So, in paragraph 5.6, you say the following, on the following page, at page 74, at no stage during the investigation of this matter did I influence any witnesses to give any contradicting statement to IPID investigations, nor interfere with the investigation of IPID conducted against Lieutenant General Pahlani.
That's correct, Chairperson.
So it's clear that your own understanding was that the allegation being made against you, whether it's true or not is a separate issue, but your understanding was that the allegation being made against you was that you had somehow influenced witnesses to give contradictory statements to IPID investigators, and that you had somehow interfered in the investigation of IPID against Lieutenant General Pahlani.
That's correct, Chairperson. That's why I responded to it in this paragraph.
Now, it would have seemed to me, and help me in this respect, but it would have seemed to me that one of the very important or crucial aspects of your defense that was being prepared over here in the statement, with the assistance of your attorneys, was to say, but actually, we were quite alive to the possibility that it may be alleged that we were to undermine an IPID investigation. And for that reason, right at the beginning, on the 30th of November, we actually went to meet with Advocate Mzanyati.
That's correct, Chairperson. It was on the public domain that IPID is investigating General Pahlani. Now, once we get into the investigation of the security breach, we see it fit to engage the DPP.
Now, I understand that you're saying that. What I'm asking you is, why does that statement, that allegation, that very important fact which is part of your defense, why does it not appear in your statement?
No, I think, Chairperson, I was responding to allegation, as I've already indicated. It was put to me with the dates that I commit this, and I responded the way I responded.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Does Mr. Ncube intend re-examining anything?
Mr. Chair, I just perhaps have one aspect to clear up.
Sorry?
Just one aspect I need to clear up.
Yes, okay, all right. They sanitize the podium before you go there.
Brigadier Ncube, on the last document you were referred to, Exhibit LE 23, page 71 to 74, your warning statement. Now you remember your evidence is that from the outset this was a prosecution-driven, no, rather prosecution-overseen investigation. You mentioned in paragraph 5.3 in your warning statement that the designated advocate, Advocate Mashuge, decided that Mr. O'Sullivan and Ms. Trent must be charged. Now, can you just explain, is it not very extraordinary that already by the February of 2017, we know by the 8th of February, Advocate Shu, who requested warrants for their arrest. Is that not indicative indeed that at that very short period of time, an advocate of the High Court was already designated to deal with this matter?
Yes.
Very well. And just with reference to the affidavit where the incorrect date was mentioned by Mr. Van Zyl, you can see that affidavit was deposed to and taken on the 8th of December, so clearly it must have been a typographical error when he said he was seen by members on the 8th of November.
That's correct, Chairperson, because the team only started on the 30th of November 2016.
And at no stage is the summary of your investigation from the outset. You simply did your job as a police officer. You gathered evidence on instruction under the direction of the DPP in this matter.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Thereafter, any decisions of prosecution was taken by the DPP, and the entire indictment and the summary of substantial facts is also before this commission, which contains a summary of the events and the decision to charge whoever were charged, inclusive the members of IPID.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ncube. Thank you very much, Brigadier Ncube. If a need arises, you may be asked to come back, but for today, you are excused. Okay. We are at 10 to 1. I guess that it's convenient that we take the light adjournment. As I indicated to counsel in chambers, I will take a longer lunch than normal, up to 2:30, to enable me to attend to something important relating to the work of the Commission. So we are going to resume at 2:30. We adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All rise.